Recently, I was asked why. The question why I do what I do. Why do I do this for a living? Why did I create a registered investment advisory firm? Why am I interested in helping people? Why do I want to give? Why do I find folks so gregarious and intriguing? But that why question was almost provocative in nature. Why do you do what you do? You had to really be introspective and ask that, and I'm still asking that. This is a journey, it's not a destination, that much I'm sure of. I recently sat through a lecture by John Maxwell, a leadership guru. I will admit, I'm not always the best leader, but I want to improve. I really do. Hence, this episode about why. John had some amazing truths to share, and I'd like to relate some of those things and how or even what I'll be communicating as we go forward together. One thing that was said by him is that you cannot deliver what you have not developed. So when you prepare to educate, you're doing what you're teaching, not teaching what you read or heard. So talk is cheap, and actions speak louder than words. Anyone who has children knows this is true. They do not so much imitate what you say as what you do. And if you don't do what you say, you're going to get called out. I know because I have three, and two of them are grown men now. And one of them's coming up fast, little Sophia. So, for years now, I've been seeking in my life what makes me feel better here. And I don't even mean sometimes in the heart, right? Spiritually, although I'm seeking that too, but even physiologically and emotionally. I did not fully realize until recently that I've been examining nutrition and health since I was 15. Back then, when I was 15, I started running over 5 miles a day. I started going around the neighborhood. I remember I drove it with the car, or I must have had my brother drive it with the car because I was 15. I couldn't drive, right? And it was 9/10 of a mile. I remember that, some really steep hills. In Pittsburgh, everything seemed to be built on a hill. So I started doing that first 9/10 of a mile. Then I would add running up our own cul-de-sac and down, and then attaching the loop around the neighborhood, 9/10 of a mile. So it was a mile. Before you knew it, I was running 5.5 miles a day. And I learned some things about my body and my health. It sounds a little crazy running that much, but it really helped to turn on my body. One notable thing is that I would feel especially alive after I would run. And something that my wife actually pointed out was that I told her in high school, I got a lot calmer, it seemed like, in my junior and senior year. Well, at least a lot calmer to me, and maybe to others around me. And she said, it's probably because of your running. Because you know that left and right cross patterning? It actually sorts us out neurologically. You know, when you walk, you move your arms left and right. And when you run, even more so, and when you swim. And I've spoken about this in the past. That will sort you out and make you feel better. So, when I would run, I'd have more of a heightened awareness of myself, and I felt good. It's interesting to note that when I lived in Brooklyn, a full 10 years later, I began running again. I picked it up. It seemed I was surrounded by runners, so I took the hint. Not daily, but 2 or 3 times a week, I would go running. I would run the Brooklyn Bridge across into Manhattan and back again. Sometimes I would run from Brooklyn Heights into other neighborhoods and come back again, about 3-mile loop. Again, I felt so alive. I mean, ready to go. Years later, I started running to help my oldest son, Isaac, who at the time was 6 years old. He had lost his speech. Do you know that not only him, but his younger brother Jude started running as well? At the tender age of just 4 years old. We actually, 1 year later, had built up to running 3 miles daily, every morning, 6 days a week. Can you believe that a 5 and a 7-year-old who was autistic and brain injured was able to run 18 miles weekly? I mean, to tell you, we were runners. That didn't even include the warm up, walking to and from that DuPont estate across the street from our neighborhood back east in Wilmington, Delaware. But this is not about running, but rather a way of thinking that I want to share with everyone going forward about analyzing how you feel and what influences you, what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad, what things do you eat and drink that make you feel good or they make you feel not so good. What are you thinking about? Or maybe supplements or prescription drugs that you take. Are they making you feel good? Are you listening to your body? Or are they making you feel bad? Naturally, I want the best for you, just as you want the best for me. So any discoveries that I make about health or wealth, I want to share them with you. And any discoveries you make, please share them right back. Make comments, especially on this YouTube channel and on this one particular video. I would love to hear back from you. What things have you found that are good for you in your life? A major influence in my life that encouraged critical thinking and examining what is good for the body and what is not was my mom, a fiery little Lebanese woman, Terry, who was passionate about food and passionate about everything else. She suffered through 2 bouts of cancer when I was a teen, and the second round was terminal, yet she beat the odds and the terminal cancer. I should mention that she was a registered nurse, and this certainly in her case led to a more critical weighing of recommendations from doctors and the medical field in general. She used to tell me, son, the nurses run the hospitals, not the doctors. And I've talked to a lot of nurses, and they all tend to throw in and say, yeah, that's pretty much true. She actually cured herself holistically with multiple different natural treatments, supplements, and approaches. Do you know while she was healthy, nearly every dinner she made for Dad and us 6 kids started with a salad every night? I can still see her spooning it out at the table. First the salad, then everything else. And my dad, he would take that steel mixing bowl that she'd made the salad in, and he'd eat from that. He was a practical, no fuss sort of man. It was a really fine practice to start the meal off with a raw macrobiotic diet. Her critical thinking led to far more than just nightly salads and dinners made from scratch by this little powerhouse of a woman. She had a profound influence on many, many people, but especially on the way I see things and the way I examine the medical field in general. I'd like to share with you about my dad too, though. He was a critical thinker from a different angle. He examined the establishment, and although working within the parameters, he was always suspect of its influence and even wrongdoing. And he pointed out this was always something my grandfather had noticed, even so as well, but to a lesser degree. Grandpa did not trust the banks, and he never had a mortgage. Never. He and Grandma owned 2 homes in their lives and paid cash for both of them. Can you imagine paying cash for a home nowadays? They paid cash for everything. And in their era, I'm not sure they even had a credit card. Grandma was the last to survive, and she passed away in the early 90s, to give it some context or perspective. Their country of origin was Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, but the eastern side. And from the limited amount of probing with a Slovak friend of ours, Tatiana, from what I can gather, there was a lot of mischief and cheating of the common people by the establishment and institutions in this part of Eastern Europe. So this questioning mindset continued as my grandfather came over to the US as a young teen, as an immigrant. And thank God it did. So much of how I question things, what I will try, what I won't try, and what I share with you all, I owe it to my parents and their parents before them, and their deep, rich, celebratory, and gritty cultures. The values I was taught were not to take advantage of anyone, to look out for one another, to be generous, to be kind, but certainly don't be taken advantage of by anyone, anything, or any institution or professional. I recently had a client hire an attorney and pay thousands for the exact same advice I gave them 10 months prior. It's not to say the attorney did anything wrong, and it's not to say that even my clients did, because they wanted reassurance from somebody who was licensed legally. It's just that sometimes you have to trust who you trust. And titles, they're just that, titles. Examining what I have done in my course, in my employment since I was 14, 15, started shoveling driveways in snow back in Pittsburgh when I was probably 11 or 12. But for employment, most jobs have always centered around people and interaction with them. But without the people and helping others, the job, it would have fallen flat. And my desire would have waned, and I wouldn't have wanted to continue. I see this now, looking back to both my parents, observing my dad always helping his clients get the most affordable insurances they could. Even when he retired, his clients would call him for advice. For the next decade or more, after he had retired, they didn't call the company. They'd call him. He wasn't even licensed. My mom would say, Michael, aren't you concerned that this might backfire on you because you're no longer licensed? He said, Teresa, these people, they need help. I've got to help them. But Dad, he was a minimalist. Like many Eastern Europeans, he was not comfortable spending his money or wasting anybody else's money either. I practice the same thing for my own family, for myself, and for all of you. Sometimes less is more, which I think is a huge help when implementing solutions, financial solutions for families. I really believe in this. Every dollar counts, and I hate wasting anyone's hard-earned money. And my team could tell you, I hate redos and do-overs. I really do. Not only your money, but your time. It should be spent effectively. My mom, she would have given you the shirt off her back, and I saw her oftentimes do just that. She fed thousands of people over the years, in the kitchen, in the dining room, on the back patio, at her graduation parties, at our parties in the basement, and just in general when she would have folks over for dinner. And sometimes we didn't have to have them over. They'd come through the door more often than not, and they knew if they did, they're going to get fed in my mom's house. It was an exceptional display of hospitality from both my parents. I've been striving to live up to those values without even consciously realizing it. But I love giving, and especially when it comes to being in the kitchen. But even what I get to do professionally, I get to give to others. And guess what? Yeah, I get paid for it. I get rewarded. But every day I get to get up and go in and say, this is my why. I get to look after all of you. In fact, our tax planning strategies go back to these same values from my mom and dad, both of them. Less for the IRS, more for you. In fact, as I was thinking about this particular episode, I was heading on a plane to Kansas to learn more effective tax planning strategies. 3 days worth of education to understand, hey, these things we can implement for you, and we can lower your tax burden. Accomplishing these planning techniques to save on taxes, it requires work. And the same amount of pay that we're already getting, there's no increase in the pay when we implement these techniques. Well, that's odd, right, Charles? If you're not getting paid more for doing these things, why do you do it? Ask yourself that. It's for your benefit. Even though it takes a lot of team effort from all of us, we do it as my words already mentioned, because if I know about something that's going to help you, then I want to extend it to you. And I feel like it's right up our alley. And so if we do a fine job by you, you'll be as, what's the expression I'm looking for? Tickled pink, right? Happy as a turnip. Yeah. So let's return back to our friend, John Maxwell, that leadership author and coach, who pointed out 4 big questions that need to be answered by me as I pursue my vision, which will positively impact everyone I touch. That's what I wanted to do. So he said to all of us, ask yourself, what do you want? Or what do I want? The people to see, the people to know, the people to feel. What I want you to feel, and what I want you to do in the coming months, and hopefully even years ahead. I want to help you see and know what I would like you to feel and to do to help you thrive. I want these things to come to you to help you thrive. I want you to see what the truth is about your health and about your wealth. I want you to know it's okay to question things that are recommended by others, and to also realize I'm your friend. I want to help you. I want you to feel a sense of calm and confidence, knowing you've done the best you can, and knowing that we've got you. There's a plan in place, and that we're doing the best we can. And more importantly, you are on the best road you can be on, and you're doing your very best because you've chosen to ask questions, to examine your health and your wealth, and find someone you can trust. And this is a journey of knowledge, of wisdom. And we all should keep growing on this journey. Going forward, I'd like to continue sharing items of keen interest in both retirement and health. Let's face it, what's retirement, even a wealthy one, without the time or the good health to enjoy it? Hopefully, we can get both accomplished to the best of our abilities. To your good health and good wealth. CD Financial, where health and wealth meet.